Welcome back to my channel. And no, you're not seeing things. Yes, I got my hair cut and it is colored. And hope you like it. I do. But let's get right into our lesson today. Let's do a little review before we get into our lesson. What are the three parts of a flower? If you said petal, pistil, stamen, you would be correct. Petals are the colorful, showy part. Some have big petals, some have very tiny petals, but it's what attracts the insects for pollination. Then we have the stamen, which is the male part of the flower, and that produces or makes pollen. And then we have the pistil. The pistil is the female part of the flower. And the pistil, down at the bottom of the pistil, there inside are eggs, and when the pollen joins with the eggs, it creates seeds so it can reproduce. Well, in order to reproduce and make that seed, it has to be pollinated. That pollen that is made in the stamen has to move from that stamen to the pistil. And there are several ways pollination can happen. The first is self-pollination. And in your book, remember, the stamen is taller than the pistil. So with gravity, pollen can just fall on the pistil and be pollinated on its own. Then with things like grass and wheat and rice, we have wind pollination. Wind just picks up the pollen and moves it to the pistil. Most flowers and other plants, flowering plants, are pollinated through either insect or animal pollination. When they're getting food from the flower, they get pollen all over their bodies and they move to another flower to get more food, and then that pollen sticks to the pistil and therefore it becomes pollinated. Then we learned about after the pollination, a seed is formed, and around that seed a fruit is made. And who can remember the most important job of a fruit? Now, I know we like to eat fruit, and yes, God made some fruits for us to eat, but the most important job of a fruit is to protect that seed. That's the only way a flowering plant can reproduce, is through a seed. But that seed cannot stay in the fruit. It cannot stay on the tree. It has to go to a new location to find soil to possibly germinate or to begin to grow. And that's called disperse. Now there are several ways that we can disperse a seed. Through wind, like if you see in your book the dandelion seed, you can blow and they will blow everywhere. It's kind of like a little umbrellas floating all over the place. They will go into the soil and possibly germinate. Water is another way. Animals, couple of ways with animals. Many animals like to eat seeds, and they will collect those seeds during the summer and the autumn, and during the winter time they will eat them. And sometimes they forget some of those seeds or can't find some of them, and it possibly can go in the soil and germinate in the springtime. Then animals and people, as we're walking along in the woods, we may collect seeds on our clothing or in the animal's fur, called burrs or stick tights. And when we notice them, we pull them off and we throw them on the ground. We've then just dispersed those seeds. We've also learned there were different parts of a seed. And all seeds, they're not shaped the same way, but they have the same parts. The outside, just like you would wear a coat in the winter to protect your body, is the seed coat. The seed coat protects the inside of the seed, especially that developing plant, which is the second part. The most mass of the seed is what we call the cotyledon. And in the cotyledons, can be one or two, monocot or dicot. But that is where the stored food is kept, so that little immature plant can grow until it's strong enough to do photosynthesis. All right, so now we're going to learn about the plant's life cycle, and we're on page 60. Now, in your book, it shows you a pumpkin, the life cycle of a pumpkin. Now, what is inside that pumpkin? Well, of course, many pumpkin seeds. So if I take those seeds and I plant them into the soil, what's it going to grow? Is it going to grow corn? No. Is it going to grow a rose? No. Is it going to grow a banana tree? No. it's only going to produce or make a pumpkin. God created organisms to reproduce after their kind. So pumpkin seeds will only grow pumpkins. All right, so we have two vocabulary words that we're going to talk about today. The first one is germinate, and the second one is seedling. Germinate, seedling. All right, so let's look on page 60, and I have some things I want to show you today. Seeds need certain conditions, or just the right things, in order to germinate or sprout or begin to grow. Most seeds need water, the proper temperature, and air. When the conditions are just right for a seed to germinate, it absorbs water and swells. The first part of a flowering plant to grow is the root. The root grows out of the seed and pushes deeper into the soil and starts absorbing water. Next, the seed sends out a shoot. The shoot is the part of the plant that will grow above the ground. The shoot pushes its way up through the soil. When the new flowering plant first comes out of the soil, its leaves are not developed, or they're not strong enough. The plant cannot make its own food yet. What's that big word we use when plants make their own food? If you remembered photosynthesis, that is correct. So the seed coat and the stored food stay attached or connected. The young plant uses the stored food until the leaves develop or get stronger. When the plant can make its own food, or photosynthesis, the remains of the seed coat fall off. The young plant is called a seedling. Soon more leaves appear, and the stems get thicker and taller. The seedling grows until it becomes an adult plant. As an adult plant, it will be able to reproduce its own seeds. Okay, so let me go ahead and explain to you what that's talking about. I'll draw a little picture for you, and I'm going to make this rather big so you can see it. All right, put a big bean seed in here. And when it's just right, remember, water, right temperature, and the right amount of air, usually nitrogen. When it's ready, it will absorb water and it will get bigger or swell. And then when it's just right, these little things start coming out called roots. And those roots always grow down. And what do? They absorb water. And other things too. But absorb water and nutrients. Okay? So that will continue to grow. Those roots will grow and grow and grow and grow to absorb more and more water. The second part is what we call the shoot. And this is still under the ground yet. But as it keeps growing, it might look like that. Okay? Sometimes, however, when it's not strong enough, you'll have the seed coat still attached to it. And when it's ready, then it will open up. Okay? And as it gets taller, the stem gets thicker, and it will start to produce more leaves. And then at that point, they can start doing photosynthesis. But at this point, when it's still covered by the seed coat, it's not strong enough, so it uses those cotyledons down here for nutrients until it's ready. But then after, when it's strong enough or developed enough, it can make its own food through photosynthesis. So here, I have a similar picture, all right, that is in your book. And it shows you can stop this video at any time. It goes from the seed to a seedling, which is, it says a sprout. That's just another name for a seedling, to a larger plant. And then for this case, this is a plant that grows on a vine. Then it begins to make a flower. That flower is then pollinated, and it will make a fruit. And that fruit will grow into a mature fruit. And when it's ready, you can take it off, and you can plant those seeds if you'd like. So in your book, it says the seeds disperse, the seed germinates or begins to grow, a seedling grows, the flower grows, and the plant becomes an adult. So at this point, it can start reproducing. But it can't reproduce unless it's pollinated. So insects come by and pollinates it. And then after it's pollinated, those petals begin to fall off. And then a fruit forms around those seeds. that were made in the bottom part of the pistil. And that fruit will get bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, most of the fruits we eat. Well, let's look on page 62. Now, do all plants reproduce with seeds? Well, we're going to answer that question right now. Let's look on page 62. Certain kinds of flowering plants can also reproduce without using seeds. A strawberry plant has runners. These runners are stems that grow along the ground. The strawberry plant produces roots along the runners. New plants start from those roots. Some plants, such as tulips, grow from bulbs. Others, such as potatoes, reproduce from tubers. Tubers are stems that grow underground. Well, that's kind of strange. Stems are supposed to be above ground. But in this case, your potato, the part that you eat, is actually a stem, and that grows underground. New potato stems grow from the eyes of the potato. There are also plants that can grow from cuttings. A cutting is a leaf or part of a stem that is cut from the plant. A leaf cutting from an African violet can grow roots when placed in water. Then, if the roots are planted in soil, a new African violet plant will grow. God designed plants with the ability to reproduce. They may reproduce by a seed or in some other way, but the new plants are always similar to the parent plants or the beginning plant. All right, so there are 4 other ways. There's going to be a 5th one that we'll talk in the next lesson. But here we have 4 ways where you can reproduce a plant without using seeds. The first one is a runner. These are kind of creepy plants that as it's growing along the ground, sometimes it will produce new roots, and those roots will go under the ground, and a new stem will grow, or a new plant will grow from that. And the example here is a strawberry plant. Another one is a bulb. You can see here in your book that it's a tulip. You put those in the ground, and they will reproduce a flower or make a new flower every year. Other kinds of bulbs, for instance, garlic, onion, those are forms of bulbs, not seeds, okay? Then we have potatoes. I just mentioned that, tubers, they're underground stems. So what you're eating is a stem, not a root. And then we have cuttings, and I have 2 examples of cuttings for you. I'm going to get a little closer to the camera so you can see. Here I cut the bottom 2 inches, or maybe 10 centimeters of a celery stalk. And I just placed it in water, and I don't know if you can see, but it has grown new roots, okay? It has grown new roots, and you can see it is growing again new celery. So when it gets tall enough, you can place this in the ground until it fully grows, and then you can have celery forever. You just keep cutting the bottom off and replanting it. I have another one. This one is also a cutting, and it's just starting. I don't know if you can see it or not. It's just starting to grow roots. And when they grow a lot of roots, you can put this in soil, and I have an insect. When it grows a lot of roots, then you can put them in soil, and it will grow to a nice big plant. So this is what we call a cutting. So both of these are examples of cuttings. Okay, very good. So go ahead and do the 2 questions on this page, and also you can answer do the activity manual, page 45 through 49, and I will see you next time.